So over the past month, I've sold my snowplow and I've ended my snowplowing business. And there's a lot of reasons why I decided to do that. If you're curious for those exact reasons, you can go through some of my previous videos and it'll give you a clear explanation on why I decided to go that route. But that's left me with a problem. I have no way to clear my driveway. And I recently moved into this house. There's about a 100-yard long driveway, which honestly I don't mind shoveling that much, but you know, when you start talking about 1-foot storms of the heavy wet stuff, 100 yards, that's a lot to shovel. And not to mention I do work for a municipality, and sometimes we'll be stuck there plowing and salting for 20 or 30 hours on end. So after going through a shift like that and coming home and having to shovel a 100-yard long driveway, well, that gets to be a little bit too much for me. So I decided to get a snowblower, and that's what this video is going to be about today. First off, I do have to thank my father. My father offered to purchase this as a housewarming present, and who am I to decline such a generous offer? The model I decided to go with is an Ariens 30-inch Deluxe model. I need to pause the video for a moment here and clarify. This video is in fact for an Ariens Model 28 Deluxe. I was supposed to get the 30, but they put the wrong crate in my truck, so I had to go back and exchange this unit later. But again, this is for an Ariens Deluxe 28. Which there's a lot of reasons why I decided to go with this model, which I'll probably get into later on in the video. But really the topic of today's video is going to be what it's like unboxing and assembling this model. Now, he purchased this through Home Depot. Now, when you purchase a snowblower through Home Depot, you have a couple options. You could either get the crate shipped to your door like this, but I've had things shipped to the house before, and I really don't like that because, if they ship it here and it's damaged, that causes some headaches. I don't really trust shippers that much. Additionally, somebody normally has to be at the house where they're shipping the crate to, and that's normally during normal working hours during the week, so I didn't want to take off work to have to be here to have them drop off the crate. Another option is you could have them assemble it themselves, but me personally, I like to assemble things myself. I like to know how they operate. I like to know where the adjustments are, because I'm sure, there are some adjustments that may need to be made on this machine. And, some guy at Home Depot, I think they get paid based on how many units they assemble. So, what do they care if something's off a little bit? As where me, my machine, I'm going to make sure everything's assembled to a T. So you could purchase it pre-assembled, if that's for you. Or you can do what I do, go to the store, inspect the box, look for any damage, which this box is not damaged in any way. Have them put it in the back of your trailer or pickup truck and bring it home and assemble it. So that's what I'm doing. All right, let me get some tools and we'll start unboxing this unit. All right, when you open the box, this is what you get. Looks like packaging is adequate. The main unit itself is in there pretty tight. The only thing I wish they put a little bit more packaging material around this blower, because this is just kind of free to rattle around, but everything looks good so far. So I'm thinking the easiest thing to do is to take the chute out, open up the box this way, and then we'll pull the machine out that way. Attached to the chute in a little plastic bag, you will find the assembly instructions, and I like how they lay this out. It's very easy to understand and very easy to read. Well, there's no words, it's really just pictures, so just look at the pictures and see what you got to do. So they clearly say you're going to need a couple tools, pair of scissors, needle nose pliers, 3/8 inch wrench, 7/16, ½ inch, and 9/16 inch wrench, and it's double-sided. So let's just follow the pictures and see how this thing turns out. So the first thing the instructions tell us to do is to get this control panel ready to fold up. So what you're going to need, you're going to get a ½ inch wrench here for these bolts. So what you're going to want to do according to the instructions is just loosen up these two bolts right here. You don't want to take these off, but just loosen them up some. If you take these off all the way, you run the risk of this control assembly completely falling to the ground. So loosen these up a little bit. It also says to make sure these two nuts are loose, which it's a little bit tight right now, so I'm going to have to get a different size wrench. These are a little bit smaller, maybe 3/8. And also there's a little zip tie down here, which I don't know if you can see that. We're going to have to cut that in order to be able to fold this up. Proper size is 7/16 for these smaller nuts. The instructions also state to make sure this control lever is all the way to the left, which I just made sure that mine is all the way to the left, and it came like that from the factory. Alright, now we're going to stand the control panel up and take this out of its storage position, but before you do this, just make sure you have your 1/2-inch wrench or socket wrench or gear wrench ready to go, because as soon as we stand this up, we're going to tighten down these two bolts here. And you just want to be careful, because once you stand this up, if you let this go, it's just going to drop, and you don't want that to happen. So slowly stand it up, make sure everything looks good. You see how this other little lever will eventually kind of go into itself there. So while I'm holding this up, I'm going to start tightening down these bolts. One small problem I'm having while assembling this is these bolts are carriage bolts, meaning that the top of the bolt is flat and then it gets square before it gets threaded. So what happens, that square part is supposed to get sucked into part of this frame right here, and that's supposed to keep this end of the bolt from turning. The issue is, as I'm trying to tighten this, the carriage bolt is just turning and there's so much tension on it. I can't just push the carriage bolt in by hand. So what you can do, take a hammer, preferably a mallet, something soft so you don't scratch your finish, and just give it a couple taps. Now I'm going to give this another little turn, try and set it to where it needs to go. There it goes. See how it just fell in? Now that one end, it's not going to give us any more problems. I can just continue to tighten down this nut. So while we were standing up the control panel, as long as you loosened up these nuts like I mentioned you needed to do earlier in the video, this literally should have just fell right into place. And now that this is properly in place, we can go back to our 7/16 inch wrench and we'll tighten these two nuts down. At this point, I'm also going to remove some of this plastic that it came packaged in, as well as the foam on the grips here. Now that we have the handlebar section of this unit completely assembled, now you can go ahead and remove it out of the box and give yourself a little bit more room to work on this thing. Next, we're going to start the assembly of the chute. So the first thing you're going to need to do is grab your 9/16 inch wrench, and this is where the chute connects to on the main body of the machine itself. And if you look by the tire here, you'll find two bolts. You may need a 9/16 inch wrench to crack these, but once you get them cracked, then you can spin these off by hand. And you're going to want to take both of these off completely. Just make sure you don't lose this little lock washer here. From here we can get the chute itself ready to go, so we can take off this plastic packaging. Alright, now we can mount the chute, which this is pretty self-explanatory. Put the chute on the machine like so. You do want to support it though, because if you let it go right now, you run the risk of it toppling over. So what I recommend to do is to start with the bottom bolt. And according to the instructions, you just want to get these finger tight right now. So I'm going to tighten this down a little bit. That feels fine right there. So now I know it's not going anywhere. Now you'll notice on this cable, which this cable controls, you know, how high the snow shoots. It's got, I guess you could call this a loom clip. And there's a little white spot on this cable right here. So you want to make sure you slide that loom clip right to where that white spot is. You want to cover the white spot. That's kind of an indication on where this loom clip should go. And according to the instructions, you take the bolt, put it through the loom clip, and the loom clip should be facing the outside of the tire, or away from the machine. So again, we're going to start this bolt and just get it finger tight, and we'll have to come back in a little while and tighten these down with the wrench. Now we're going to come to the top of the chute housing with a 3/8 inch socket, and we're going to remove this plastic cover up top. Once you remove the plastic cover, you'll find this metal input shaft, and you'll find a little clip right here. So now you're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. Get in here and simply pull this clip out. Once you remove that clip, hold on to it. Make sure you do not lose that. And after you take that clip out, the next part you're going to need to locate is your little crank handle. Now there's two ways, pretty easy ways to identify which direction this crank handle goes, because obviously one side's longer. So the shorter side goes towards the user, and another way to identify which way it goes, on one end, which the longer end of this crankshaft, you'll see that there's a little hole right here, and that's where this clip is going to go through. So what you need to do is insert the short end of this crank handle into this little hole in the machine right here, like so. And then the long end, you're going to insert it into this input shaft, and make sure you line up the holes nice. And then take that little clip we just removed, insert it back in there, and push it down. After you insert that clip, you can locate the plastic cover which we just removed, and you can cover up these gears again. It may help to take the bolt out. Look to see where it lines up properly, then reinsert the bolt. Start it by hand, never start it with a wrench. And after you get that started, starts to get tight, take your 3/8 inch socket and we'll tighten this back down. Next, we're going to come back down to the bottom of the chute, and we're going to take our 9/16 inch socket, and now we can go ahead and tighten these two bolts which hold this chute upright. Next thing you want to do is just rotate this crank handle and make sure that the chute rotates freely without any issue. Looking good. Next, we're going to take this cable that controls how high the machine shoots the snow. And if you look at the engine casting, you'll notice a loom clip that has like black plastic on it, similar to the other clip right here. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the cable, push it back, and kind of insert it in that clip right there, which is a bit loose in there. So what you're going to do is just take a pair of pliers, needle nose, whatever you want, and you're just going to pinch this down like so. That way in the future, this will never rattle out of here and get tangled up in the tire. Then from here, we're going to take this cable and route it up to the control panel. You're going to take this control cable, go up and over this crossbar. There's a little plastic or rubber boot. You're going to want to peel that forward a little bit towards this eye hook right here. What you're going to want to do is pull out a little bit of cable. There's a little alcove in this metal clip right here. So you're going to take the cable and just go through the clip like so, and then push this forward. Take the rubber boot, slide it back over like so, and pull out this little clip right here. Pull out this little washer. Take this eye hook, put it like so, and put the washer back over. Take this little clip, put it back in, and you're good to go. Now, as mentioned earlier in this video, you can purchase these snowblowers pre-assembled by Home Depot. But also, as mentioned earlier, the people who assemble these, the more they assemble, the more money they make, so they don't really care about fine-tuning these things. Now, for example, if you look at my chute control lever, if I go up to the first pin, about half of that, it's just taking slack out of the cable. I don't know if you can see that from where the camera is right now. But like, if a Home Depot person were to assemble this, they wouldn't take the time to adjust this little nut right here and take some of the slack out of that cable. So that's one of the benefits of assembling machines yourself. So what I'm going to do now, it doesn't say to do this in the directions, but clearly there's some slack in this cable. I'm just going to loosen up this little lock nut right here. I'm going to adjust this cable properly, and then I'll give this another test. Again, here's a close-up. You can see as I pull this lever to the first notch, you can see how about half of the movement is just taking slack out of that cable. So let me adjust that. Now, if you are interested in how to adjust this, you want to start with your chute control lever all the way down. We'll turn our attention to these little lock nuts right here. So simply what you're going to do is take this bottom lock nut and twist it to the left. So you're going to want to loosen that up. Give it a couple turns, and from here we're going to take the top nut. We're going to twist this a little bit. Tighten it down. We'll get this a little snug. We'll give this another quick test. And that's much more responsive. There's still a little bit more slack that I could take out of there, but I'm gonna leave that right there. I'm happy with that. Much more responsive, much better. All right, and that pretty much concludes your basic assembly of your Ariens snowblower. Now, the only thing you may want to adjust is your skids right here, which you want to read through the instruction manual and adjust them based on the type of terrain that you're going to be snow blowing on. If you're snow blowing on gravel, obviously you want those skids down a bit further, so you're not picking up gravel, as opposed to if you're snow blowing on pavement, then you can have those skids a little bit lower and get that cutting edge a little bit closer to the pavement, pick up more snow. Again, read the instruction manual, and then you just need to add fuel and oil. Make sure you go through the instruction manual and add the proper oil that your machine calls for. And that's that. Now, I'm going to take a deep breath because after I just finished assembling this thing, which took me maybe about an hour, I looked at the decal right here. This is supposed to be an Ariens Deluxe 30 model. Well, it's not. It's a 28! Ah! Damn Home Depot employees. I really like Home Depot, but sometimes they have incompetent employees, and whoever picked this model off the shelf and put it in the back of the truck, they picked the wrong one! Ah! So now this has to go back there, and it has to be exchanged for the proper model, which is a Deluxe 30, and the price difference between two of them is around $300. So this was purchased from a Home Depot about an hour away. There's another Home Depot, a few Home Depots that are probably 20 or 30 minutes away, and they said this has to be returned back to the Home Depot that it was initially purchased at. Like, what does it matter if I exchange it at one of the local stores versus the one an hour away? This is turning out to be a real inconvenience, and I'm not going to stand for it. So if you want to buy this, maybe consider buying this from Lowe's. And also, when you get the model in the back of your truck or trailer or what have you, just read the box and make sure you have the right model. I probably should have done that before I started assembling it.